Beautiful. Look at that. Lovely.
My name is Ethan Hewitt.
My name is Rebecca.
My name is James Douglas Lush. I am 175 centimetres tall and weigh around 95 kilos.
My name is Keelosaurus. K-E-E-L-saurus.
My name is Slater. That's the only name I was ever given.
My name is Angela Case.
Okay, tell me about a time when somebody else got it better than you and it was just unfair.
When I first got a job, my parents made me pay for any clothing that I wanted, and now that my siblings have jobs, they don't have to pay for anything.
That's a bit of a scandal.
I reckon I'm a bit upset about it, really. Look.
When I was growing up, I had to pay for my own phone and my mum and dad said that I had to pay for my own credit. My dad started paying for my sister's credit when she grew old and when she got a phone. So I was like, what? That's not fair. She doesn't deserve that.
Grade 12, my school offered a Canberra trip until 2013, which is when I graduated, and they did not offer it, so we didn't go to Canberra. Can't say it without smiling because I'm like, it's so annoying, it's hilarious.
I was never ever allowed to have my friends over during the school week. Last year I saw that my sister was allowed to have her friends over during a school night, and it wasn't just for one night, it was for like an extended amount of time. And I was like, that's not fair. Not cool, Mum. Not cool.
When I was in year 6, we were going to England on a trip over Christmas holidays. I spent 12 months saving my pocket money. I was cashed up, ready to spend big, but because my brother and sister weren't cashed up, Mum and Dad bought all their souvenirs.
Whatever.
And I had to pay for my own.
Whatever.
Rip off.
In school, I always wanted to do dance as a subject, and my sister convinced the school to let the year above us do it as like a trial, and then the year after we were supposed to move in and get it, they cancelled it for our year and brought it back the year after. Oh.
I do feel bad for you. Your sister was allowed that and you weren't. It brought up rage within me.
Look, I'm not gonna lie, in the moment, I was so outraged. It was like the inner rage like boiled up inside of me. But now it's like, it's all right. But in the moment, that inner rage was so real and it was so there. And I think we can all experience moments of inner rage when we see something or are a part of something that seems a bit unfair to us.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you see it all the time with siblings especially. Like, the parents always tend to treat the younger kids better than the older kids.
Not cool, Mum. Not cool. Not cool. Totally not cool. It's like when you're at school and your pal next door to you is talking and you're the one that gets in trouble for talking, but you didn't say, like, not one single peep came from your mouth. It's like...
It's totally unfair.
Not cool, teacher. Not cool.
I think most people want life to be good and fair. Like, we hate it when we see people get something that they don't deserve. And even I think sometimes people like attach this concept of fairness to God.
Definitely. It's like, well, their prayer got answered, so why did not mine?
Yeah, or like you feel like looks like God's really speaking to someone. They're like so excited about what God's doing in their life. And you're like, well, that's a bit unfair. Like, why can't God speak to me as well?
Or when someone does something really bad, like murdering someone or stealing money from a bank, and God doesn't bring down his wrath upon them, and you're like, well, it's not really fair, God.
He doesn't send the Avengers to kill them.
I know, like, is God even God?
Bit unfair. We think that God should be fair, but really God is not fair at all. Like, I'm totally not perfect, and I imagine you're not perfect, right?
Definitely not.
But even though we're not perfect, God still is involved in our lives. Like, what would be fair is for him to kick us out, but he totally treats us in an unfair way in the fact that he still gives us grace and he still loves us despite what we've done. And you can see that not just in our lives, but like all throughout the Bible, like especially in Peter's life, because he did something pretty terrible, but Jesus still accepted him.
Yeah, we see that in Matthew 26, and Peter's declaring to Jesus, he's saying, Jesus, I'm never going to deny you. I'll never leave your side. And Jesus turns around and is like, pretty sure it's going to happen. Like, it's all right. Like, you know, I'm God. I can see the future. And a few verses later, Jesus is facing the worst moment of his life. He's about to be crucified, and Peter actually denies knowing Jesus in a moment where Jesus needed him the most. And if I was Peter, I know that I would be too afraid to show my face in public. I would never want to hang around Jesus again, let alone see him. But a couple of chapters later, we actually see that Peter and Jesus are hanging out again, and they're not just hanging out, but they're being friends, and they're sharing a meal together. And
Yeah, and there's kind of this weird conversation that plays out. Like, you would expect there to be tension in the room because he just betrayed him. Like, Jesus might be like, "What the heck, Peter?" But actually what plays out is very different. And Jesus actually says to Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter's like, "Yeah, Lord, you know that I love you." And then Jesus says that again a few more times, and Peter's like, "Why are you repeating this?" And then Jesus says, "Well, if you love me, then feed my sheep." And this kind of sounds like a weird thing to say, but actually Jesus always talked about how he was the great shepherd. And so what he's saying is, like, not only are we good, Peter, but I'm entrusting you with my job. Like, I'm entrusting you with even more. So he was very unfair in the fact that he didn't push him away, but he actually entrusted him with something again.
Yeah, and even though Peter may have deserved to be pushed away and kicked out, God never did. And I think that just shows the reality of God's grace and how good God's grace actually is.
So in this episode of Famous Last Words, we're going to talk about how God's grace really is good grace.
So, Thrive Youth, the first thing that I want you to take away from this is that God's grace keeps you close.
Yeah, I think we have a natural tendency to sort of pull away from God. If we think he's fair, then we kind of naturally assume if we've done something wrong, we want to shy back. We stop putting our hands up in worship. We stop showing up to church as much. When it comes to small groups, we don't speak up. And we stop posting Christian stuff to our Instagram. And we don't necessarily quit our faith or anything like that, but we do shrink back.
Yeah, I believe that sometimes we think that we need to keep God at a distance, but his grace says that you don't need that distance. And so I want to challenge that thought of you don't need to think that either, that you need distance between yourself and God. Whether you've done something wrong or you've never been close to God, we don't need to shy away or back down from him. So in those moments where you're feeling like you need to be distant from God, I want to encourage you and challenge you. That's the times when you need to pray harder, you need to lean in, and you need to show up even more.
Yeah, definitely, because no matter how you feel, remember, God is unfair in a really good way, and our feelings naturally tend towards what is fair. So even if you think that it should be a distance, man, you can know that God's grace is good grace, and it is unfair, but it is unfair towards you. That was a little bit cute.
So the second thing to take away from this is that good grace overflows.
Yeah, I think God gives us so much grace that it should overflow out of our life. It's not just enough for us, but it's enough for others as well. And so other people in your life, they shouldn't have to come to church to know what God is like. They should be able to see it in you because you've been given so much grace that you can overflow it out of your life.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of moments where we can show this good grace that God has shown to us to other people.
Yeah, and this is how it overflows. Like when you notice someone has made a mistake or they've failed in something, it might feel fair to point it out, but an unfair good grace, it actually covers it up, and it doesn't say it. It doesn't point it out.
Yeah, it's like when someone does something wrong by you or they hurt you, the world would say to put distance between you and that person, but good grace would say to actually draw close to them and stay close to them.
And yeah, even begin building that relationship again.
Yeah.
And when you do build that relationship again, like not bringing up the past all the time, not bringing up how they hurt you, that's giving a person some good grace.
Yeah, another way we can show good grace to people is to stop dobbing on them when they do the wrong thing.
That's really hard, especially with siblings.
But just stop. It's not fair.
Yeah. It's unfair in a really good way. And Easter, right? Easter's just around the corner.
Yes!
When you get Easter eggs and you want to share them with someone, you can show them how good God really is by giving them even more than what would be fair. Not one for me, one for you. You, if you're confident,
go for it. I'll take them.
One for me, two for you, right?
Yeah, come on.
So we can even show people that God's grace is good grace in situations like that just by being even more generous than normal. And so this Easter, I want us to remember that you know, when we stuff up, God doesn't give us the silent treatment. He wants to stay close to us, and he gives us so much grace that it actually should overflow into others as well. And so we can go out and we can show other people that we have received this as well, God's grace. That really, really is good grace. And in our final episode of Famous Last Words, this final story between Peter and Jesus, we see that God's grace, it really is good grace.
I loved your quotation, Bunny Mark. Ears.
Made a failure, it can really, oh man. Okay, let's go again. Yep.
Are you ready? That's a thumbs up.
Go. Talk. Quick.
So, Thrive. I forgot how I introduced it. Yeah, so there is tonight is that God's grace keeps you close.
Yeah, so we see that there.
Right. So the second thing we need to take away from this is that good grace overflows.
Yes. That bit is way too long.
Yeah.
Can you please press stop?